Okay, I'll reload your screen. Oh, there we go. Yes. Cool.
Nice. There it is. So, just to double check, when I open this... Oh, wait, no, I already tested this. I'm sure it's fine. So what I am going to do, though, is turn down the music. I'm going to turn down the master just a tad. Yeah, that'll be good. And so now I'm going to load up the game so you can see what I'm doing in Oxygen Not Included, and anyone who comes in early can also see that. So I did a bit better as far as preparation goes. Well, also in
Yep.
our interview, our discussion interview, kind of an interview. We so we prepared for that, but also as far as deciding what I wanted to do in Oxygen Not Included, I also prepared for that. So what I want to do right now, the priority here is getting this carbon uh, skimmer working,
Yep.
because so this is the oxygen distribution, the aqua, the teal, I guess you would call that color, um, is very breathable. The blue is it's okay, and like purplish is barely breathable. Red is unbreathable. So this area of the base is where all the carbon dioxide has been accumulating from the duplicants breathing, and so
Mm.
it being heavier than oxygen, it falls to the bottom
Yeah.
of the base, and so I have oxygen being produced by these diffusers over here, but there's the carbon dioxide is accumulating, and so the way you deal with that is by researching, which I've done, and setting up a carbon skimmer, but that requires clean water and outputs polluted water. So I need to figure out a way. I'll probably just dump it in here, um, because yeah, there's a whole thing. So once I set up like toilets and all that, I'll want to send, because those produce polluted water as well. I'll want to send that to a different reservoir, because that polluted water will have germs in it, which you can purify the water into or into water instead of polluted water, but it will still have the germs in it. So if you were to try to use that water for like any food production, or using it again for like sinks or toilets, duplicants would get sick from using that water. So you
So
really
you need
need...
to use.
What's
Sorry.
that?
So you need to use like a septic tank of some sort.
Yeah, I'll make a septic tank. That's probably the next thing that I'll do. But first thing
Mm.
off, I'll probably just start. So this polluted water has no germs in it. Well, I'm not going to use this. I'm going to create two septic tanks. You know what? I'll just create one septic tank actually, because it's not going to be that much polluted water from the carbon skimmer. So I'll just set up one septic tank for the. I'll probably set it up right here, I think, and I will pump clean water up this way, and clean water will go this way for the toilets. Actually, I think what I'll do is I'll put the toilets over here in this area, and uh, and then I'll set up showers like right here. But first things first is I need to get. I'll probably um I'll probably set up a septic tank here. I wasn't paying a lot of attention when I made this airlock. That's the purpose of this, is you separate gas on this side from exchanging with this side.
Mm.
But duplicants can move through this. So what I'll do is I'll probably just set up my septic tank right here, and just all the polluted water that I produce right now, which won't be very much initially, will all go right here. Because it doesn't matter where the septic tank is, but it does matter where the toilets are and where other rooms are. because so I have the barracks here. So they go to sleep every night here and wake up. So everything is based around this room. So the rooms that are closer to this area are in high demand because if I like set up a mess hall here or set up showers here is probably what I'll do. And yeah, it's a very interesting game. All of these designs, except for this airlock, that I looked up online. I just saw it, and it's really simple. It's a really easy way to deal with gas exchange. And then, instead of just a wall. So
So what time is this like set in this game?
I'm not sure. It's like the distant future because there's a huge amount of technology, but you have to research technology, and I haven't gotten that far into the lore as far as why that is. But there is a lot of lore, and like these ruins, like when you get here, you can search. Like there will be desks and things, and it will have like log entries. So these are ruins from the humans, presumably, that were have settled. This is an asteroid, this whole thing. So you find bits and pieces of the lore, but I haven't really read them because I'm more interested in doing this stuff. But these aren't really humans. They're kind of clones of humans. They're called duplicants. So yeah,
Like
there's
the pop up figures. You know those ones? The pop dolls.
no, I don't.
Yeah, that one. No, not that one. The other one. That one there, down below. The other guy
This one
to the right.
over here. This one,
The guy to the right.
right?
That's it.
Stage right or stage left?
Yeah, Ellie.
Ellie.
She looks like a pop up. You know those pop up dolls that you get of the different characters.
Oh yeah, like the Game of Thrones stuff. Like they make them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is that
so-
style.
Yeah.
Yeah, her face especially looks like that. They have different
Alright.
different duplicants. I think we're about a minute out from me saying the thing. So
Cool.
that's going to be really fun for us, and we're going to have a great talk. Let me get my talking points, so I have those, and let me open the world clock so I can do that thing. So I guess I'm waiting for 9 o'clock exactly because that's the best time to say that it's 9 o'clock is when it is actually 9 o'clock. All right, welcome to DWACAAM episode 4. It's 9 o'clock in California where I live, and it is 5 p.m. It's 9 a.m. in California where I live, and it is 5 p.m. In England where Tectenitarius, damn, I practiced it. Can you say it?
Tectenitarius.
Tectenitarius. That's the one time I'm saying it. Where he lives, it is now 5 p.m., which is England. Nice. Very smooth. So, we are going to be talking about things today, which they're going to be very interesting. And so, I guess we'll just go right into it. I guess I could have done this more smoothly, but I'm still learning about doing podcasts, so yeah, whatever. Anyway, let's just go into the first talking point. Are you ready, Tech?
I'm ready.
So, let's talk about the psychology of conspiracy theories and how they are formed in human society. You have a lot of knowledge on this topic. You've told me.
Relatively, yeah, I've done autodidactic study. I haven't done any actual academic study on it. Just it's an interesting area to explore for me personally, and so I've looked at it from sort of two angles. One, which is what I would call the domesticated viewpoint, and then the undomesticated viewpoint.
What do you mean by domesticated viewpoint here?
So the domesticated viewpoint is someone who has never had their worldview challenged by sort of life events, sudden sort of experience of malevolence. You know, they sort of grow up, they're very naive, might be a bit of a rude word, but it is that essential sort of situation that they haven't experienced real serious malevolence or the adversity that comes with it. That sort of makes
Essentially,
them question the
es-
world.
essentially they've been sheltered by the structure of society as modern, well, as modern
Yes, completely.
civilization and technology has allowed them to be, which is kind of unique to the 20th century and onwards, because before that people were very much in danger of starving, and very most people were more part of the actual world. And so what you're talking about is the sitcom fantasy, like take a regular sitcom, a terrible garbage sitcom that runs on American television, and like that world that they've set up where people are, friendly, and sometimes there's trouble, but it's all good, but it's fake, right? Is that what you're getting at? Am I
Yes.
kind of?
Yeah, like Friends, Fraser, that sort of world
Yeah,
structure.
it's like the.
Okay.
Okay, so that's what you mean by domesticated. Please continue. How about undomesticated? What does that mean?
So the undomesticated is where someone has an experience in their life, they come across people, individuals, that really cause them to lose their sort of naivety and innocence in some sense, like real innocence and naivety. And that's obviously it's kind of like what Jordan Peterson talks about when a person experiences real malevolence, they're fully changed forever
I don't know
or
who
very,
that
very.
is.
You
um,
don't know who Jordan
that's
Peterson is,
okay.
okay?
Let's move on.
Yeah,
But let's try not to reference too many
okay.
things outside of the conversation that we're having now. Uh, so so someone who has experienced something in life that's essentially made them realize that it is not all a sitcom. Are you there?
Yeah, and that's what I'd sort of use as two sort of markers: domesticated and undomesticated. And so
So just
the
to
sort of
I
formation of a conspiracy theory
I know you
from
want
a
to.
domesticated. Mhm.
Sorry, Tech. I know you want to go on this, but just as far as undomesticated goes, could you come to that conclusion even if you did lead like a sheltered life, just by observing the world around you and realizing that what society is presenting to you is maybe not necessarily how it is?
No, because you would first have to have the impulse and desire to search
Oh,
for
really?
something that doesn't satisfy you. Yes, it's
Okay,
all about satisfaction, emotional satisfaction.
I see. Well, please continue. Where are you going to go with this?
So the formation of conspiracy theory from both viewpoints, how they sort of form, perhaps. Um, so the formation of a conspiracy theory from a so the formation of a perspective of a conspiracy theory from a domesticated viewpoint is that you could say someone who's more domesticated within the sort of civilized societal structure from birth. They've never really questioned it, if you like really questioned it. Um, and they have no reason to question it. So when they get sort of a conspiracy theory coming their way, they're potentially more likely to just say, "Oh, that's just a conspiracy theory," because of course there's not the interest or willingness to explore something that could shock them out of their reality that they currently have. You
Right.
know, whereas an undomesticated person is more like to say, "Okay, yeah, that kind of chimes with what I've sort of already sort of suspected, a bit of confirmation bias there. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. You know, I'm sort of looking at it quite objectively here as best I can. And they're more likely to sort of say, well, conspiracy theories are, our normal thing when you have power accumulation and concentration of power, wealthy interests conspiring together to have some sort of gain. And in some sense, that's kind of very natural within a sort of Darwinian dog-eat-dog world that sort of the undomesticated person just naturally accepts as they grow older.
I see. Well, I kind of disagree with you. I think that you could lead a sheltered life and be presented with this ideal world that is popular in media and come to the conclusion that that's not the way things are, just through direct observation. I don't think that you'd necessarily have to... Well, maybe as far as malevolence goes, could you just hear about it? Or would you have to directly witness it?
I think there has to be some sort of personal participation. Sort of the interest is I would say correlating to some level of experience. But then again, I could be wrong, and there are plenty of people who sort of haven't experienced the malevolence, and suddenly they just shift their worldview. So,
that's more what I'm thinking, because generally most people encounter some sort of malevolence in their life, but not all people do. But I don't think that if you're just sheltered like that, that you're necessarily excluded from having what you're talking about, which is an undomesticated view of things. But please, that aside, how might you think about conspiracies from both viewpoints? I think you were getting into that, and then I wanted to go back to it.
It's basically about how your world formation develops as you go from birth, child, teenager, and then early adult, and then adulthood. And of course, if you've had like experiences that sort of, shift you out of that sort of normative framework, I think you are more likely to have an undomesticated viewpoint. Like, say for example, say we've got two people, right? We've got the person who we could call domesticated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just saying they're very domesticated. They're very, it's a civilizational structure is very sort of supportive of their worldview and so on, and they don't really want to question it, right?
Right.
And then you've got the undomesticated person, and let's say they both read 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene.
Oh.
Now, that book is obviously a very contentious book.
It's not obvious to someone who's never heard of it.
So it's basically the laws of power. It's ruthless. It's utterly unvirtuous. Like, if you're interested in virtue, virtue is basically just a garment for the power player who
like Machiavelli's The Prince.
Yes.
So also people might not have heard of that one, which I have heard of. So let's try to just talk about the concepts without referencing outside works.
So what I'm saying is, the domesticated person would not perhaps take seriously kind of all the different laws of power, and it's sort of, it's kind of like what is so in the alternative sort of media space, there's this idea called game A and game B. I don't know if you've heard of it.
No.
So game A is basically dog eat dog, every man for himself, Darwinian natural selection, power accrues, big power is going to always dominate, there's a natural order, can't beat the natural order. Game B is the ideas of various sort of, I won't say thought leaders, but people in this sort of space. So you got like Daniel Schmachtenberger, Jordan Hall, these sort of game B thinkers who want to break this sort of game A paradigm. They think that they can sort of rise above it. This sort of ruthlessness isn't a natural state of humanity. They believe that humanity can be something else. So they want to break the game A paradigm.
I would like to do that. It sounds like a good thing to me if that is indeed possible. So, Tech, we were going to talk about a specific example as far as how the domesticated viewpoint might contrast with the undomesticated one as far as conspiracy theories go.
Yes.
Which
So
example was that?
The conspiracy theory that I'm going to use for this is just a general wider one, and it's the it's not so much a conspiracy theory because it's not directly sort of malevolent as other ones are sort of presented.
It is a conspiracy theory.
It's a conspiracy theory, but a definition of a conspiracy theory implies breaking the law. The definition of a conspiracy theory is a group of individuals conspire together to do something against the national interest of a law-abiding sort of citizenry.
Well, I don't know about that definition of conspiracy theory because I don't think that you have to break the law in order to have a conspiracy.
Okay, but that's just the definition I'm going on from what I've researched.
I see. Well, I consider the UFO conspiracy thing to be a conspiracy theory. So, well, we kind of differ on that, but let's move on. So let's address it as a conspiracy theory as far as
the conspiracy theory that I'm going to use here is going to be the disclosure conspiracy theory.
Okay.
And the disclosure conspiracy theory is that sometime in the future there will be a mass reveal and a sort of extraterrestrial life, aliens, whatever you want to call them, will be widely accepted by the public,
and that the government has been lying about them for some time,
hiding information.
Well, hiding,
not so much lying as such, because if you read the CIA documents, you read the FBI documents, there is an acknowledgement of extraterrestrial life.
Sure, hiding. Deceiving.
Potentially.
Sure. So, what? Please tell me about that.
So, the interesting thing to so we use that as a basis. So it's the idea of post-disclosure, is what they call it. So I don't know if any of your audience have sort of researched any of this. Of course, it's completely without any empirical
Just imagine that they have done the same amount of research that I have done, which is virtually nothing.
Okay, so yeah, in sort of what we could call ufology or ancient aliens sort of researchers, heavily sort of considered pseudoscience and so on. But anyway, their claims are quite interesting, nonetheless. So the domesticated viewpoint would perceive this conspiracy theory, perhaps, as just a conspiracy theory, like completely conspiracy theory. And it's predominantly because it's just such a big shock. It's like, nah, it's too big to be true, or you know, there's no evidence to it. So in some sense, the domesticated person is someone who's they're skeptical, yes, but they're not skeptical of the sort of supremacy of sort of the research process.
So they trust in their authority, essentially, or in their government.
They trust in the empirical process.
I see.
So it's like a filter. If you look at Michael Shermer, famous,
no, we're not looking at Michael Shermer. We're not referencing anything outside of this discussion.
So, just in general, a lot of these sort of so-called skeptics and representation of skeptics in the sort of agnostic communities.
Okay.
They dismiss anything related to ufology, ancient aliens, anything, because of course there's no empirical evidence for it. It's just claims.
Okay, so the fact that science or empirical evidence doesn't exist, could you define empirical real quick for me?
Empirical evidence is evidence which stands up to the scientific scrutiny. So it's evidence which meets the standard of the scientific process. So the searching of the first, from what I've understood of my research, you start with the null hypothesis, and then you start from there. You look for, you
I
do tests.
wasn't looking for something quite so.
Okay,
Just in 10 words, what is empirical evidence?
empirical evidence is evidence which stands up to the scientific scrutiny
Okay,
process,
good enough.
scientific method.
Okay, so now we kind of defined empirical evidence. So as far as a domesticated worldview, my cats are running around my apartment, and I feel like if I try to explain to them that now is not the time for this, that they will ignore me. So I'm not going to bother. So anyway, I'm Tectenitarius. I've got like things going on. So please tell me, how might a domesticated person? God damn it. How might a so why would that color their perception of the disclosure conspiracy?
Because if you take like if you take the sort of the wider aspect of the conspiracy theory, if there's no evidence for it, why would they take it seriously? There's no evidence within that sort of empirical filter. Why would they take it seriously?
Okay, so that kind of makes sense to me, because I'm a very much, a lot of my worldview involves science, involves empirical evidence. So, did you want to criticize that, or would you like to just say, like, how an undomesticated viewpoint might differ?
So an undomesticated viewpoint, it differs because they are not sort of looking at everything through the filter of science. So there could be claims, they could be true, but of course they don't know scientifically they're true. They're sort of, it's in some sense a form of belief, okay? But it's a skepticism in the sort of supremacy of the empirical process. So all of these claims from all these different people, all these different researchers, there could be something there. They're willing to make that leap of faith, essentially.
I would like to.
In that sense, they are undomesticated because they're doing something which is outside of the zeitgeist.
Spirit of the times,
process.
Everybody.
Yeah, the spirit of the times is empirical, scientific empiricism. Yeah.
Right. So, what many people don't realize about science and empirical evidence is my belief about it is another type of belief. And so what you're saying is that the undomesticated viewpoint challenges that as a type of belief that may be wrong.
It's interesting you say that scientific empirical evidence is a belief. I mean, that's an interesting position.
Oh, okay. Well, that's just a philosophical view of mine, and it's quite deep. But I would think that having an undomesticated viewpoint, you would be challenging that, right? You're like, hey, I don't know about your science and all of this stuff that you claim, even if you do have evidence. Like, I question your evidence. That sort of thing, right?
I don't know if an undomesticated person would question the supremacy of scientific evidence. It's quite a hard thing to do.
Okay. Well, maybe they wouldn't go that far.
Scientific evidence is like the golden standard at the moment.
I'm not getting it quite right, but that's okay. So, what might an undomesticated how might their viewpoint differ from someone who lives in that sitcom that we were talking about?
Sitcom maybe not be the best representation. Now we're looking at
it's a great representation.
Okay. Okay. They would challenge the idea that there can be things that are sort of real to a conspiracy theory, even if they can't be entirely proven. It's a form of deductive reasoning rather than inductive reasoning.
Okay, so I'm still not quite sure, like how. So if from an undomesticated viewpoint, they hear about UFOs and such, how would they approach that differently than say someone who just says, "Ah, that's a conspiracy theory. I'm not going to listen to it."
So a domesticated person would obviously use the sort of programming of the times, which is scientific empirical process. They do their own tests. They see if they could do any tests, develop any evidence, see if the evidence challenges their hypothesis. Again, finding evidence to disprove their hypothesis before sort of finding evidence to, in some sense, prove it, because of course that's the first sort of filter against the sort of confirmational bias in the method. In the later stages, that is, before it becomes a theory as such, because in some sense, in the scientific worldview, nothing is a theory until it has solid evidence.
Right.
So the word theory and hypothesis are used differently.
They certainly are. So again, so what does a person with an undomesticated viewpoint of the or worldview, how do they approach a conspiracy theory like the UFO conspiracy?
They would be more inclined to act on sort of more of a deductive framework rather than an inductive framework. So they're more likely to say, okay, we've got all these different people saying very similar things. That is in itself is quite suspicious. Whereas the domesticated viewpoint is potentially sort of saying, well, unless all of those individual people have empirical evidence, it has no value. There's nothing to it.
It seems like with that sort of viewpoint, you could get a lot of things wrong.
Yes, you could.
Because you could be like, you could hear about the flat Earth thing and go like, oh, well, that's a possibility.
Flat Earth, I would say, is a different.
But as far as a domesticated,
there'll be a false equivalent, perhaps.
a domesticated versus an undomesticated approach, an undomesticated approach doesn't require empirical evidence, which the flat Earth thing does not. So I would think that if they were to approach that, they would approach it with less of a dismissive attitude than, say, I might.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the whole flat Earth thing is obviously, I can see where you're going with that, but I would just say that perhaps is a slight.
But that was my example of like how you could get things wrong if you use the undomesticated viewpoint. Like, so if you're going to.
Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying.
If you're going to accept all arguments and not need evidence for them, then you could easily pursue an argument that has no validity.
So the difference between these two conspiracy theories, the UFOlogy or disclosure, whatever you want to call it, and flat Earth, is there are far more people talking about the UFOlogy, ancient aliens, all that sort of stuff, because of course it ties into all the other stuff like different tech from different ages, so, and all these, just things that challenge the established narrative. So you got like the dig sites with all these very large bones, and you got all this. I don't have it to hand at the moment, but
that's okay.
But I've done a lot of research in it, just autodidactically into it, like not in academic research, of course.
I do not know what didactically means offhand.
Autodidactic means you learn without sort of going through the academic process.
I see.
So in some sense, you sort of study these things using different sort of disciplines of research. So you look at it and say, okay, from an empirical standpoint, this is bunk. This is pseudoscience.
Right.
But if you were to be a bit more skeptical and just think, well, maybe there might be something to it, like you've got all these different sort of pieces scattered everywhere, and you're thinking, well, maybe there might be something to this. Maybe the sort of non-ancient alien worldview is incorrect, perhaps. So it's having that skepticism to the established sort of viewpoint at the moment, which is aliens are well, they're sort of non-existent at the moment. That's the sort of worldview, the sort of the established scientific community that they've yet, or there's no evidence to support any claims at the moment.
Well, I kind of want to wrap this topic up, but I would like to know, do you think that the powers that be are hiding information from us about aliens and such?
Personally, what I would say is that I would go out, go out on a limb here and say there is some truth to it, but it's only just a sense or belief. I can't prove it. I can, show you CIA documents, FBI documents, but they could all just be fake.
Right.
The whole. This is where I sort of flip into the opposite when I'm doing my own thinking. I sort of go from one extreme to the other and just try and see what comes out.
You have to question. You have to question your own thinking too, or your own acceptance of evidence.
I personally counter it and sort of go from the opposite. So I go from exploring the idea that a breakaway civilization, all this tech and everything could be real, and then I just go in the complete opposite direction and say it's all a psyop from the 1950s.
They're just trying to distract us from other things with this alien talk. That's an interesting thought on it. I don't know. I could see the government hiding things from us because the government does a lot of pretty sketchy things, and I wouldn't put it past them. But also, I don't want to call myself domesticated, but I'm probably more of that stance of what you would call a domesticated viewpoint, where I do want empirical evidence for things, and that's how I accept things as being fact or not. So, as far as aliens go, I don't know. It's a possibility, but I'd like to see like people actually come forward with things and then actually see more evidence before I make up my mind on it. But
there's nothing scientifically proven. So yeah.
Right. So I'd like to go ahead and move on to our next thing, which is this is a little bit lighter of a topic.
Yep.
So I would like to. We're going to talk about, and you came up with both of these points. So the second talking point is the prevalence of tabletop gaming in a world that tends towards virtual entertainment. So what I mean by how I wrote that by that sentence is that things like Dungeons and Dragons, Warhammer with the the little soldier figurines with the Space Marines and all that super cool stuff. Games like that are still popular or are even increasing in popularity, even though our entertainment as a species is moving more towards things on computers, like video games and Twitch, for instance. So, what are your thoughts, Tech? Why is it still?
Yeah.
Why is it doing this? Why do people like it?
I think it's because there's something cathartic, as we explored previously when we were exploring this a little bit. I think there's something cathartic to it, like the process of. I mean, I'm talking about it from sort of my own perspective, which is from my own experiences when I got into the hobby and did sort of tabletop painting with sort of Warhammer, and then I started with Lord of the Rings back in like 2001, so I'm like 10 years old.
Is that like a D&D style tabletop game?
No, it's a skirmish game. It's an old skirmish game. It came out in 2001. Games Workshop brought it out just as around the time the Fellowship of the Ring was coming out.
So more like
I got it.
Warhammer then?
Yeah, it's Warhammer. It's Warhammer tabletop models. Yeah.
Okay, but with Lord of the Rings characters.
Yeah, models. Yeah.
Okay. So why do you think that like so that was in 2001 that they were doing this? Why is it that 20 years later like these things are still popular or maybe even getting more popular?
I think it's got to be just there's an aesthetic, cathartic experience in sort of buying your models, developing your color schemes, painting them, and then seeing the finished product. There's a sort of kinesthetic, hands-on appreciation, emotional satisfaction, if you like, that you sort of perhaps don't get or can't get with sort of, you know, instant gaming, instant gratification. As in some sense, it's mimicking childhood deferred gratification.
Oh wow. That's a that's that's a that's a wow. Well, deferred childhood gratification. Um my perception on it, and I don't really do these things, but I have played like D&D, and so I'm not the sort of person to go paint models or anything like that, but I wouldn't be against playing Warhammer. The appeal that I see in such games is that you're actually interacting directly with other human beings. There are other human beings around the table. Um and so there's that
There's a
sense,
social aspect to
there's
it.
the social aspect of it. It's nice. You don't always want to be on a computer talking to your friends on Overwatch or whatever. So there's the actually being in a room with people, the social aspect to it, but it also feels like a video game in that it's a lot of it is well, it's different than a video game because a lot of it's imaginary. I think that's another appeal of it is just you have to use your imagination to fill in a lot of the gaps. And so like a good D&D game is up to the imaginations of the dungeon master and then the players. So I think that that's an appeal. Also, with something, I think it'd be harder with Warhammer, but you could still probably do it. I'm sure people do. But with like Dungeons and Dragons, you can play that online. But it's you can have like a Discord going. I know people that do it where they have entirely like online sessions where everyone's at home. But I think like even in that case, there's more of a feeling of being with other people than just playing a video game and hanging out with your friends in that way. What do you think about what
Yeah,
I
I mean,
just said?
I used to go to a club nearby, and it was just totally different experience just sitting there painting models with them, and instead of just sort of playing World of Warcraft, which I used to play quite extensively, then I stopped playing.
There's more of a human element to it.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, and you develop the transferable social skills, whereas I mean, yes, there's you. I'm not saying you can't develop social skills in sort of online gaming. It's just the eye to eye contact. You don't get that in online gaming at all because there's no way to do it unless you're on like sort of a camera chat or something.
Right. So right now we're not building anything.
No, exactly.
Wait, this is just these are just words, everybody. Don't worry about it. Um, no, we are. No, we're talking about things. There is even in like video games, there is there is something you are learning about other people. But I think yeah, I agree with you. I
Yeah,
think it's
and
more
of course
so.
in this sort of the hobby. Yep.
It's more so when you're like you're using your imagination to be a character and you're playing with other people who are also using their imagination. It's a it's a good mental thing and not just fun. Um so you like paint models and such, right? For like
Yeah,
Warhammer and such?
I started quite early on, and then sort of went into World of Warcraft around 2004 and just completely stopped. I don't know why I did that because I could have got into the painting scene and
Hey,
yeah, I could have.
I used to read a lot of books up until I was about 20. I would read all sorts of literature. I really think that helped contribute to my vocabulary. But at some point, I stopped reading books, and I just started watching shows and and uh, and playing video games. And we're obviously different people, and there are different reasons. But maybe it was something similar, like you were just distracted by video games instead of.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. I mean, I was only like 14, and it's like it's much more fun to go and play in a 40-man raid than go to a Sunday uh, afternoon teenagers Games Workshop club.
Right. When so you got back into it though, right? When did
I
you
got
get?
back into it when I sort of came out of university, sort of crashed out of university.
Oh wow.
Um, yeah, well, I was doing graphic design. It wasn't the thing. I wasn't really into it. You know, in the UK, we sort of have this very, very quick streamline, and if you don't keep up with the streamline, then there's no real other option. There's heavy promotion on going to university, and I just wasn't ready anyway. So I got back into the hobby.
How long
It was
ago?
mainly 2013.
Okay. So it's been a few years.
Yeah,
Been like 8 years you've been back into
2012.
it. But
It was after the new Hobbit film came out, and I was like, whoa, yeah, whoa, let's play this again. I was basically
nice.
trying to trace back my childhood.
Nice.
It's quite funny actually. I didn't go
Nostalgia
so far as to Lego.
nostalgia can be a pretty powerful thing. Um
Oh, it can be, yes.
so I would love to I played D&D like I think the last time was 6 or 7 years ago. I'd love to get back into it. Just I think my issue with it was the group I was with, which was an in-person group, was not incredibly imaginative, and I think that I am a fairly imaginative person. So I kind of wanted that, and I was kind of bored by the combat and the scenarios that were going on. But I think that with a better what would you call it, quest line, or what would you call that?
I mean, I've never
A
played
campaign,
Dungeons and Dragons.
a
I've only ever
campaign.
played Talisman, the
Um,
old Talisman game.
I'd love to like play D&D, or maybe not D&D, maybe something like GURPS, which is like it's a different. It uses a lot of the same sort of dice rolls and things like D&D, but it's different. Um, it's a lot more like you can create a lot more things than in D&D, as far as my understanding goes. Who knows? Maybe it's just up to the imagination of the person creating the campaign. That's probably a lot of it, but I wouldn't be opposed to getting back into it. It seems like it could be fun. So yeah, I don't know, just briefly, like tell me about model painting. Do you use a 3D
So
printer?
yeah, the model painting is increasing in popularity, and it's not just Games Workshop. There are other companies, Cool Mini or Not, which is basically like it's a website to sort of rate painted models, and then you can also they sort of also do their own games. So they got a very popular pandemic game, um, uh, Zombie Horde game. Because I had to do I did a marketing exam, and for some reason the marketing exam was on tabletop board games, and I was like, brilliant! I only
Nice.
actually managed to get merit in
You're
it
like, I know
because
this one.
exactly I know this one, and I sort of got a bit too cocky and didn't read the back page of um the exam, so I only got a merit instead of a distinction. So yeah, I learned my lesson. Um, so I did loads of research for that prior to the exam, so I kind of know a bit about it. Um, but yeah, coming back to Games Workshop, they've seen their share price. They were 600 and something back in 2001, possibly, or 2004. I can't remember exactly, but they're now at 10,000 or so. So they've had a steadily increase,
Nice.
and that is because their sales are
Oh,
so
I
strong.
stopped playing Oxygen Not Included at some point. um,
Yeah, I noticed. Yeah, I'm watching
oh
the
wow.
stream.
Oh, damn. I just got too distracted by my other windows and talk
Uh,
of D&D. Anyway, no, I'm totally on point. This is exactly what I meant to do, everybody. Sorry, keep going.
and so the popularity has boomed, and I think it's in largely because the IP is getting more people. So Games Workshop have recently been sort of monetizing their IP a lot more. Sort of Total War,
What do
Warhammer,
you mean by
very
IP?
popular. IP, intellectual property.
Oh yeah.
So it's their intellectual property as to their sort of their background, their lore, their artistic sort of world narratives that they've constructed. So Warhammer Fantasy, Age of Sigmar, Warhammer 40k, Warhammer 30k, all those other specialist games, Blood Bowl, those other ones that they have.
I see.
And they've been monetizing their IP a lot more on different computer platforms as well as PC as well. And I think that's contributed as well to promoting the sort of wider aspect, and then people sort of get sort of hooked in. So if I were to use a marketing concept, so you're probably familiar with this, perhaps.
Maybe
'Cause you
not.
worked in marketing, haven't you?
No.
So Peter,
Probably not. But go for it.
attention, interest, desire. So it's attention, interest, desire, and action. So if I were to sort of look at that, of how Games Workshop have done that, they create the attention by sort of showing the IP in sort of gaming platforms, console, PC, and so on, and mobile. And then that sort of creates the desire to sort of perhaps people may get into the tabletop as well. They might buy some models, do some painting because they want to sort of have something on their desk or something, or it's kind of like how people buy like plushy toys after watching like a film. They want some sort of memorabilia.
Wow. I just want to let the viewers know that I've been playing Oxygen Not Included just diligently this entire time, first off, and then also that I'm not affected by those things. I'm entirely immune. just kidding. I try not to be. Commercials make me angry. Well, they don't make me angry, they just irritate me. Some commercials make me angry because a lot of times a commercial is just set there to manipulate you, which I really don't like. Because they're trying to get you to buy their thing and all that. Well, I'm going to go ahead and since we're 15 minutes out, no more oxygen, everybody dead. No, they're fine because I built the carbon skimmer at the beginning. That's all you need. And then there's the food source there. They'll be fine. Look how much water they got. They have. So anyway, what I'd like to do now is for the last part of the episode, I would like to reach out to the chat. Look at this. Hello, chat. So if whoever's there, if you have a question for me or for Tech here, please ask us. Or if you'd like us to talk about something, please let us know. Like, give us a topic. Help me out here. Something completely unrelated, are related to what we've been talking about, and just something crazy, something fun. Let's do it, guys. If no one does it because there isn't anyone watching, which I wouldn't know because I have obstructed my view of the viewership, so that doesn't affect me in disappointment. So, is anybody there? Any ideas? Anything you want us to talk about? Really, I need to introduce this at the beginning of the episode so people know that this is coming. I need to write what I'm going to say at the beginning of the episode instead of trying to remember it. Oh, hey there. I like this. I don't know a huge amount about it because I avoid the news like the plague. Tech, Tech, how about this? Food shortage versus food waste globally. I like the topic. It's I feel like we could talk about it. I know a bit about like food waste as far as what the U.S. does. Do you know anything about that, Tectenitarius?
No, not really. No, it's quite a bit of an off.
Oh no.
Offhand topic, but I can.
Oh, it's definitely off topic.
Here,
That's the point. That's the point of this segment. Is it could be anything.
Is population.
No, it's
population. It would heavily affect both of those two.
Let's
factors.
it's fine. Let's so since I don't have any direct knowledge, I'm just going to make stuff up in my mind and talk about it. So what I would imagine is that the United States produces a lot of food and does not distribute it well, or in fact has waste because oh damn, this is terrible. Like I don't know what I'm talking about. This is I was going into that.
Yep.
I was going into that with a lot more optimism than I'm feeling now. Let's try another one. Tectenitarius, anything you want to talk about? Doesn't look like we have a huge. I'm gonna look at the viewership.
I thought we could go with food shortage and food waste.
Okay, what do you know about it? Please say some things. I'm sure you know more than.
It, but if I were to just think about it theoretically, I think it has relevance to sort of economic modeling. So like, I think economic models make a huge impact to food shortage and food waste.
How so? Like why would a country waste food? Like I'm sure the U.S. does. I'm sure that's what this is about. Is the U.S. wasting food? I think we're probably the largest food producer in the world. I'm guessing. Maybe China is. Who knows? But anyway, we produce a vast amount of food, and we probably waste some of it just because we live in a wasteful society, and that kind of makes sense. But there's probably reasons for that. What might those reasons be, Tech?
I think the capitalist model would have a huge impact to it.
Right. Why?
So, for example, if you think of like a standard supermarket, you think about kind of what they stock, and
oh yeah. Okay, so I do know that supermarkets throw away meat, right? So they freeze meat typically after it gets out of the slaughterhouse, and then they thaw it to sell it a lot of times, unless it's like some expensive brand that they don't freeze, or it's something cured. But typically they'll freeze it and then thaw it, and then it's on the shelf for like 3 or 4 days, and then after that they just toss it out if it doesn't sell, which happens a lot. So, because if you ever walk behind a supermarket, generally they'll have some sort of disposal. I think they used to use dumpsters, but people would just go in there and find the semi-rotting meat that was still probably fine to eat because it wasn't that bad, or is mainly good anyway. And they would just go get it. So now, like at the supermarket near me, they have an enclosed dumpster that smells of death. It's so bad near it because there's a ton of rotting meat in there. And so Tech, you're saying that's because that's how capitalism works, is you have like, if you don't
I wouldn't say that. What I would say is that there's a trade-off for having more choice for the consumer.
Right.
And I
So,
think that contributes to
I'm sorry, what was that you were cutting out there?
food waste more than food shortages. Um, I would say that food waste is
Oh man, you're cutting out. You're chopping up.
predominantly caused because of having more choice within the. Okay, food waste is more prevalent because you have
Oh no, you're chopping out.
more choice. Because no, I'm talking fine.
Oh well, you're breaking up. It sounds distorted.
Okay, well, nothing I can do about that. Sorry.
Well, I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm just stating fact.
Yeah, I'll say so. Capitalism, the sort of the fact that people have more choice in capitalism economically means that there will be more. I think it has a correlation to greater food waste because of the competitiveness aspect of things.
And they don't always perfectly gauge how much meat is going to be sold, or other
Not just
food.
meat, veg as well. Other forms of different food types with different shelf life as well. It's another factor.
And I think what Kurt was also getting at is like that we have like just massive like I think like sometimes like crops are actually just like entire crops are just like sent to I don't know. They're just wasted essentially because of I don't know what I'm talking about. But how about food
Yes,
shortages in the world? Like how about like countries that don't have enough food? Why don't they have enough food?
they don't have enough capital investment to produce that food because they're under such heavy debt.
Or maybe
Perhaps.
their soil is awful.
Oh well, there is only 20. I think I was reading. There's only 20 years of topsoil left in the world. Not to get all doom and gloom or anything.
No, that's okay. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
We can just do. Everybody can do hydroponics.
Yeah.
I think there's probably more than that left. But I also don't know anything about that. Damn.
Have you studied any of the I wouldn't say I could say it's depressing, but I mean I went through a period around 2015 where I was looking at all this sort of crop yield data, economic data, and I basically just came to the conclusion society is going to collapse very soon, like by 2040 or something like that.
Could be, or it could just not, because people have been saying that society is going to collapse for like a long time.
True, yeah.
And then we always figure something out.
Crop yields declining year on year.
But
And
I think that our technology is advancing to such a point that we could actually start farming our food in other methods. On a massive scale. And if that's what if it starts failing like that, then that's what's going to be done. But like when you say topsoil, like what about like orchards that have existed for like 50 or more years? Are you saying that in 20 years all those orchards are just going to die even if these trees
is related to usable nutrient soil that can be continually reused. What that basically means is that the topsoil is like the soil left over from all this current reuse that we're doing, sort of the way that farmers reuse the soil. There's only so much left over the world.
But there's other ways to fertilize it and things like that.
There is, but this is a very cheap method. In the same way, like we've sort of gone past cheap oil in some sense.
Well, I think that it will. I doubt that the world will just collapse. I think that we'll just have to, as problems arise, we'll figure out ways to deal with them. Our technology is crazy.
You have great hope in humanity.
Um, I do. I don't see. I I don't see the good in not having a great hope for humanity. Because if you're like, oh, we're all going to die in 20 years, then I don't think that you're living for the future at that point. If you really believe that, I think that
Yeah.
the better thing is to do like, what can I do to better humanity, or what can I do to get other people. No nihilism. No nihilism. No nihilism here, Tech. I know you're not a nihilist.
All right, fair enough.
I don't think you're a nihilist, are you?
I'm a nihilist in relation to material humanity. Yes,
Oh, wow.
complete
I had
nihilism.
no idea.
Yeah,
And now I'm shocked. I don't
I
know
made
what
that
to think.
decision around about 2015, 16 when I did all this research into all these things.
Well, I hope you're wrong.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
Yeah, well, we'll find out, and if you're right, you know what your prize is?
Nothing.
No, your prize is humanity fails. That'll be a nice. You're like, I was right, and now we're in the apocalypse. Whereas if I'm right, I don't get anything, but we're not in the apocalypse. Um. Yeah, I kind of wish that we've got 2 minutes left, so I feel like this is a good time to say that I wish that humanity would just get their shit together and expand into space, and that would help a lot of our problems. Like, like get to working on building a star ladder. Supposedly we have the technology. Well, there are problems with it though. So we have like I think some sort of carbon fiber is or carbon microtubes can be strong enough to build a star ladder, but there's also an issue. Like, they've tried dropping tethers from orbit to tether a satellite to the planet, and when that happens, the static electricity that accumulates while it's headed, it's dropping, will destroy it. So there's that. I mean, but I don't know. I think if we, if
It's
we
in
got
the Star Trek film. Which one was it? They had a ladder there.
we need a space ladder. It'd be great, and then we could build a ring around the planet,
And nothing's gone.
and we could all
But
once we built
solar flare.
once we built the ring around the planet, we could all we could get a circle of people, and they could hold hands, and they could like dance and like maybe sing, and it'd be fantastic. So it's like it's 10 o'clock. So I'm going to go ahead and end the episode. I'll try. Kurt actually suggested that I try playing through Oxygen Not Included, so I have a better plan. I really didn't get a lot done. At least the colony isn't dead, so there is that. But I'm going to try to be better prepared. And then I was a bit tired today, so sorry if I was snippy, Tectenitarius.
Fine, I woke up from my bath like an hour and a half
Yeah,
ago.
that was fun. So right before the episode, I was like, "Oh no, my guest isn't responding to me." And then like 20 minutes out, he's like, "Oh hey, I'm here." I'm like, "Oh hey," and I'm like, "Oh great, we can do the episode." So anyway, this will be archived in stream after I'm done streaming, and then I'll get it up on YouTube. Tectenitarius didn't want to plug anything, or he didn't want to tell you guys about anything, so I will. You should watch the stream that you're currently watching. That's my advertisement for the day. We're sponsored by this stream, so thanks for watching, everybody, and good day to you, and thanks Tectenitarius for being
No
guest.
problem. Thanks.